B-Bad and Brandon.
Qualities of it.
Fucking, I miss you, Noel.
Oh, we are back. We are live. We are recording. I should remember that we're actually not live. This is pre-recorded. But welcome back to the podcast, Mr. Tim Piatowski.
Doctor Tim.
Dr. Tim Piatowski.
Doctor Gaines.
Thanks, guys. It's good to be back.
He technically is a doctor of gains.
Yeah, you fucking are. Absolutely.
What are we talking
Mate,
about today?
All the cool shit that's happening in your world, bro.
Yeah. From
You're no longer in Brisbane.
Yeah. So, moved to Darwin for ongoing lecturing position. Haven't gotten eaten by a crocodile yet, which is good.
That's always good.
You know you're a local.
No, local, you got to be here 35 years to be a territory.
35?
Really?
They've told 35 years.
So your kids can become Territorians.
It's a long commitment. It's probably the biggest commitment in the world to become a local.
Bloody hell.
Tougher than anything else you'll do. But it's good. Bit hot, as you can imagine.
Oh yeah.
Not as many lifters here. not as much of the old anabolics.
Yeah, what's
Really?
the lifting culture like up there? Lifting culture, like, is there lifting? Is it happening up there, or what's happening?
Yeah. Look, they've got two big gyms. Well, they've got more than two, but there's two big ones that I sort of had a look in. One in Casuarina, one out in, I'm going to say Winnelli. They've got a giant snap fitness here, and the Edge gym's like 2 stories. There's a few big fellas there. I haven't had a look around. You'd be happy to know, Johnny, I found a good gym
That's
spot.
next.
Done.
Gotta get the fucking wrestling PJs on, bro, and get some cuddling.
Yeah. So been focusing on that a bit more, I think, and they're pretty good up here.
Yeah.
Although I'll probably just.
So that didn't change when you moved from Brizzy to NT. You didn't get.
No, I didn't magically get better. So I was really hoping for it. I was really hoping just magically become a blue belt, but it's not.
Fuck, it'd be extra sweaty up there too for rolling conditions.
Yeah, man. Think like thick bees.
Lovely.
And it's not aircon.
Yep, lovely. That's where you get to eat another human sweat.
Oh.
As it drips on you and then mounting you. You laugh because it's happened.
Nothing you've said.
It's like being under the bench and your lifting partner drips that forehead sweat right in your mouth.
Mate, that's happened to me.
Yeah.
Oh.
Tell us the story.
Mate,
Brandon.
I was a young fella too, training at high school with a teacher, because I was playing first rugby, and I was trying to play first rugby, and I just I don't know why. It's what probably started my body dysmorphia, but I just thought I wasn't big enough, and there was probably some truth to that, but I took it as okay, I need to get bigger. So I went to our most jacked teacher in the school, was like, hey, can I train with you? And God bless his socks, Mr. Martin Radshoulders, the biggest, at that time, the biggest cunt I'd ever seen, and massive arms, benching 4 plates aside. Anyways, we're benching one day, and he's like, oh, I'll probably just go, 80. And he's like, oh no, sorry, I said I'll go 75. And he's like, nah, we don't use 2.5 kilo plates, we use 5 and above. So I had to bench 80, and I got 1 rep, and then he had this goatee, this strip, and just sweat from that dripped into my mouth, and I just crumbled under this 80 kilos. I was like, fuck this. It was not nice.
So the sweat wasn't anabolic.
His sweat was not anabolic. It did not taste metallic either, so there was no traces of Tren.
Damn. No good then. No good.
I was actually
You didn't
It's
wake
more
up
of a
the next
tribulus
day,
style of
like,
sweat than
fighting.
anything.
It was a tribulus. That's exactly it, Johnny. I do actually have a question for you, Tim, and I just on the topic of Tren sweat, and now for those listening, if you don't know what Tren is, my apologies, but like, so there was a bloke I was around the other day. He had just come off a lot of anabolic steroids, one particular trend, and he literally smelt like that metallic-y, that sweat. Why does that happen when you take Tren?
Yeah. So there's a few theories around this. I think Dan Donner actually did a whole PhD on Tren that I've read through.
I need this
carefully to grab this information. I'll try and dig it up for you. I haven't spoken to him for a while, so I don't know what he's doing. But incidentally, that increased sebum production that comes from using anabolics, the increased rate of synthesis, increased breakdown of other sort of tissues, and so on and so forth, seems to lead to more metabolic stress, more metabolic byproduct, higher levels of creatine kinase, things like that. And for whatever reason, in men, that seems to come out in this certain smell that seems to happen.
Right.
And we call it Tren sweats, night sweats, whatever. It's just basically all that extra protein accretion,
right.
all those, all that extra sebum seems to come together to make this particular smell. And I know exactly what the smell you're talking about. Because I've ringed out a few pillows of my own.
Oh, mate, it's fucked.
Yeah, it is. But, I think the way to generally combat it is, from what I've heard, and again, this is anecdotally from some of my research, of the unpublished stuff, is, basically drinking a lot more water,
right.
Making sure that your skin stays clean. That's why, a lot of people shave, right? Goes hand in hand. You got less,
right.
You don't necessarily have less sebum production. You should probably be looking at laser removal, because that might take away some of the smell.
Yeah, okay.
But I think the details escape me, and I can look it up if you want. Try dig up that thesis, but I'm sure there's some real sophisticated chemical reaction.
What's the history of Tren? Do you know, bro? Like, what was its initial application? Like, how did people come across it? Do you remember
Just
that?
real quickly though, this will be our most watched podcast. Watch.
Yeah. Keywords, Tren.
Oh, because we took
Tren. Keywords. Just make sure that's in the keywords.
Yep.
Trencast. You guys know this stuff though. Like, originally Finaplex was used for horses. It was a tablet, and then somebody got it in their head that we could grind up the tablets through a coffee filter.
Really?
Through a coffee filter.
Well, you grind them up,
Yeah.
and you use a variety of extraction sort of compounds into the vial, seal up the vial, and there you go.
Yeah, right.
Trenace or
There we go.
Trenenth or
Coffee filter and some oils.
Well,
that's normally how it's done, isn't it?
yeah.
Really.
In a blanket sense, yeah.
We don't have receipts here. We don't have.
It's not Kmart. We can't return when it's faulty.
Yeah, exactly. Interestingly enough, I mean, you've got this rise in dark web, online supply, stuff like that. There's probably a bit more contingency around that stuff now. Like, a vendor doesn't want a bad review. And Johnny, you messaged me about one of those papers that had come out around the COVID use of Peds during COVID, right? So, for example, like, people that are typically blasting and cruising, and there's a lot more of them now, okay? I think we surveyed about 60 PED users around Australia, and so a high percentage of people opting to blast cruise. The same people, incidentally, are using a lot more Tren, like statistically significantly more Tren. But the same people, you probably got over 50% shopping online from either online vendors on the dark web or websites. And it looks like they're making choices more related to their health, or at least that's the argument I make in the paper, along with my colleague.
There's but like, whether it's powerlifting, bodybuilding, whatever it is, and it's funny you say you're making choices related to health. It's like, personally, my experiences with Tren and all this sort of stuff, it's like, if you decide to take Tren, you don't worry about your health so much. Your health clearly doesn't mean too much to you, because that drug, just like, it's just, it just shouldn't exist in some sense. But also, like, you know, I think there's so many compounds that you can utilize with less side effects to have a similar result.
Yeah, I mean, you got Victor Black, pushing, and Chavez probably as well, pushing Master on pretty hard for good reason. Um, you know, Victor Black keeps making this argument that all AAS, accrete protein at the same rate, and based on the literature, we could try and draw that thread maybe. But he's right. A lot of them do a lot of other things. I'm not sure about the rates of accretion. I've seen some evidence to say otherwise, but you can't argue with the effects of Trenbolone.
Yeah.
Like you can't argue with the rate of increases. What you can argue with is the fact that people's psychological health seems to suffer, and I'm starting a bit of a study soon looking at Tren in particular and the relationship with psychological health, because we all know it exists, but there's sometimes I've got to stick this stuff in scientific literature, because academics aren't familiar with it, right? Need some sort of record of it, so then we've got some harm reduction strategies, or GPs in particular know, or whatever. Sorry.
No, that's right. I was just going to say, did you need a test subject for that study? I'm very willing.
I'll be hitting up the usual.
Does that get frustrating for you, bro? Like, because you know the story, but because you have to play in literature and what's written in a book world, to get that little balance, does that get tricky or frustrating at all, bro?
It's stuff like this, Johnny, like having a proper frank discussion with you guys. This is the fun part, where I don't have to back up everything, or I can back up a few things, or there's a few things that we just know. Problem with writing things up in journals and things like that is everything needs a source, everything needs a bit of backup.
Evidence.
And so I'm building either on other people's work or on my own work, and so the longer I stay in the academic game, the better it gets, because I can build on stuff that me and a few colleagues of mine are doing.
And it must be exciting too, bro, because if you're the first person or the first few people to actually get in some of the known stuff into these channels, it must be pretty cool.
Researchers in the UK are doing a lot. They're pretty good. Jim McVeigh and his colleagues, they're doing a lot. I think they're criminologists originally, though, so they look at things from a slightly different angle. Whereas all my stuff, for here, it's harm reduction, safe injecting, safe use, all those sorts of things, peer-led stuff. Got a new paper, should be coming along soon. It's pushing that, hopefully it'll help push some funding up. It's just taking a while, but it's all about peer-led interventions for people that are using. We use them for other drugs all the time, but it's, we only have one peer worker for steroids in Australia, and they're in Melbourne. So, really, hopefully you can get some money, start to, at least in Queensland, have some better initiatives, because we've got a high level of use there and not much support. But on the Tren stuff, I mean, particularly there, if GPs don't know, if the people at the harm reduction coordinators at needle exchanges don't know what's going on, like how can you explain? When you use this, it really messes with your head, and that's it makes you start to consider other poor choices. You can't tell me that everybody thinks straight after 4 to 6 weeks on Tren 8, even at a low
I can
dose.
fucking tell you, nobody thinks straight. But that's the thing. Like, as it comes back to the risk versus reward argument. Like, athletes are still choosing to use Tren even though these psychological effects do occur. And like, obviously for them, I know people. In saying this, I know people who take Tren and I could not even tell they're on Tren. But I know other people who take Tren and they're like, "Ooh, fuck! You are not allowed to touch this drug ever again." And I think it's it does come down to risk versus reward. But every time I've used Tren in the past, even on a physical level, my blood work comes back, and my doctor's like, "Stop whatever you're doing,"
Mm.
and it's like,
So
so,
BP starts to go
yeah,
up.
like I
BP,
respond
kidney,
very heavily. It's like
yeah,
prolactin
GFR.
goes up.
But you're running cable or something just
Caber comes
alongside
into
it, or
play as soon as I notice those like gyno, whatever it is, whatever the first sign is. I might be a bit more emotional, which is hard to judge because I cry in Disney movies anyway. But it's just like we're solving problems by adding more drugs in, which long term can't have a good effect.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, I think we've spoken about this before, Johnny and Brando. This idea of driving performance
Mm.
around particular times, and so for strength athletes, for strength sports, you know, I suppose you could make an argument that around that 4 week mark
Yep.
pre-comp, if you wanted to start throwing in Tren, Halo, you know, Anadrol, like those are the typical ones you reach for,
Yeah.
right? Because they're going to give you
See,
the tunnel vision that you need, right?
the from the research I've fucked with Trend previously to a point where I started way too early. 4 weeks seems to be that sweet spot. My thing is a lot of athletes, because 4 weeks out you're already hitting your top stuff. They're tentative to start it 4 weeks out and want to do it earlier because they feel that they won't get the most out of it. When I think if we look at the drug itself, like it will have a big effect quite quickly, and especially if you're using something like Tren A, it will be in the system straight away. So you will still get the benefit. And so if anyone's listening to this and they take Tren, just you don't need to run it for longer than 4 weeks.
Mm.
And
I mean, you're free to do what you want,
yeah, you
right?
are free to
But
do what you want, but
I would,
I would
I would go
strongly
on for people.
suggest no more than four
Yeah,
weeks. And then,
yeah.
have you read much research? Can't remember who wrote the paper about running orals like Halo, like methyltren, like Anadrol for shorter periods, but maybe a bit more aggressive dose to negate long-term sides.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a bit of like contention around that,
Yeah,
isn't there? Like some people are like, oh, you don't wanna, be taking high
mm.
dosages for a short period because you won't get the
Yep,
effects, right? Depends what you're trying to drive. Remember, right tool for the right
yep,
job. So if you wanted the mental edge that Halo like gives you, or you just wanted the really quick strength gains from Anadrol, but you don't care about protein accretion, you don't care about slow and steady size
mm.
gains, and you're just using them for neurological drive
Yes,
benefits, for rapid changes in aggression, things like that. Yeah, of course, I can see the
yep,
reasoning. You know, I've know a few people that have shot up to 100, 150 mgs of Anadrol, like just for a short period, because that's what they
mm.
felt was going to give them more oomph when they came up to the bar,
Mm.
right?
I
But you start to run the risk as well. Like I can't not say it. You start to run the risk of other things starting to happen. For example, cardiovascular risk goes
mhm.
up. The higher that dose goes up, too much Anadrol, you start to retain more fluids. There's issues with GFR excretion rates, things like that. You're probably going to start to have blood pressure issues come in. Depends what injectables you're running, right? Like if you think this through, if it's a short period, then yeah,
Yeah,
you should be sweet.
right. Because I know. I guess it really does come back to as you said, like the purpose of which you are using these drugs, and um, we've been. It puts you in that awkward position of like where do you go to find this information?
Mm.
Because a lot of the guys, a lot of guys I talk to will come to me and ask questions. Obviously, it's all run by a doctor, or tell them to go through a doctor first, and I can only pass on the information I read or my experiences with these things. But there still seems to be lack of resources that are easily accessible, trusted, that we can refer to.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, we've got that High Ground website. I think I sent you the link to sort of vet it
Yep.
and have a look at it, just on the steroid stuff that I designed. So I normally try to send that out. We're trying to have some like online discussions, and like I said, I want to make that members
Yep.
area. It's just been tough with the move and
100%.
everything, but I'm still in the background working
How
on
do
that.
you,
I think
sorry, how do you find, like, obviously with something like this being so taboo and not often spoken about, how do you find people are more, what's the word I'm searching for? I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do you get around the legal side of things? Yeah, like,
legal.
is it obviously it's not illegal to talk about, but how do you come across in a way saying this is your choice? Like, is that something that you have to print in bold? This is your choice. This is only suggestional, or
Yeah, and see, that's why I avoid, I suppose, or try and avoid as much as possible giving like cycle recommendations, like in the fine
Yep.
print. It's more the sort of stuff you do in a like a one-on-one message. If somebody sort of asks something, and I've had a few people ask some stuff before, and by no means am I, drug coaching or anything like that. I'll leave that to, more qualified people than me. But I might be able to offer a paper or offer some evidence to say, hey, this is what it did in these rat models, or this is what it looks like it does at a cellular level. So, maybe, or this is what I've heard 10 other people do, or this is what I've heard 100 other people do, because I'm starting to accumulate, larger amounts. I've got blast crews, histories of people over the last, 5 years in some cases. So
what's
I can start to
just my own curiosity? What's the most milligrams you've seen?
3 grams. 3 grams of, yeah.
3 grams
3 grams
of one compound or collectively?
of one.
Cunt.
How much in the rest of it? Jesus.
There was not much else. All the other stuff was like health related sort of,
To negate the 3 grams.
probably, yeah, probably like, something for BP.
Sorry,
Like Telmet.
3 grams of like test?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
We also write, like, I feel like this is probably true, but people can lie. It's all self-reports.
Yeah, right.
That I send out. But I feel like, once you got enough, and this is the other thing on what you said, once you got enough skin in the game and people know that you're not here to
Fuck with them.
cause any dramas or anything like that, then you start to get a bit of trust and rapport. And these are the same things that I've run a few trainings over the years. Particularly last year was a big year. So I ran a training for prison workers because they're seeing a lot more steroids in prisons lately. Ran a training for a few needle exchange, like harm reduction services, and ran a training for a few GP services as well. So the information's getting out there, even if it's just getting out there through me, and hopefully through other online resources. But it's like, I showed them some examples of blood work. I talked them through, they're not keen on prescribing, but they'll at least do the blood. So I talked them through other ways to, support. It's getting out there. I've got another study coming up where we're going to interview some GPs and look at what the reasons are for the reservations behind a few things.
Yeah.
And we're going to try and compile that, put that online. And again, all these things try and come at the angle of we can hopefully, start to make some changes in, willingness to prescribe PCT or ancillary compounds like telmisartan, like, any of those other, even something as simple as Nova, and then just knowing that it's okay to script that. They've got all these worries about PBS and stuff, so it's also about, trying to say, you got some power here, you're exempt from this legal side of things, but then they say, I got my registration as a GP to worry about. And I say, okay, you know, but here's some research saying these are the needs. Are you here to service the clients that come through the door, or are you not here to service the clients?
How does that...
Where on do you want to sit?
Obviously, like, I know you're not a GP, so I'd just like to hear your perspective, but how does that sit when, like, they've taken that oath to help the person in front of them? And obviously it comes down to the person in front of me. If I've come to them and say, look, I'm banging XYZ, I need some Nolvadex now, I haven't been able to source it elsewhere, do they have the right pretty much to say, no, I can't help you?
Yeah, they do.
Right.
They do because at least they might not feel comfortable, they might not agree with what you're doing, and therefore from their perspective, they might think, no, they're just facilitating your use.
Right.
Whereas the next step for you would be probably hospital, or, they might offer other treatments, like, they might think that you need some psychological treatment. Really, I mean, the better clinics that I've worked with, they have moved to other models, like personal needs models and things like that, where Wendell Rosevere is a big name. He's one of the guys that has taught me a lot. He's a GP, works out at Stonewall Medical Centre. They're great, but again, they look at personal needs and people not stopping until they want to stop. So you got to build trust and rapport, make sure that personal needs are met before you even start to think about saying, hey, do you want to use a little bit less, or hey, do you want to stop for a little while and see how that feels? Like, that stuff's not even on the table at the start. This is nowhere in sight.
It's just a blanket stop what you're doing.
Yeah, and you can't. It's the same. So this brings you back to the legal ramifications, where it's the same thing. It's a supply reduction approach. It's it's not even a preventative approach. It's a punitive approach, and it's really not conducive to long-term changes. We know that from environmental corrections theories and penological theories tell us, like, things like capital punishment only exacerbate long-term problems. Okay, so you punish a child by hitting them doesn't necessarily help at all. Helps in the short term, you get what you want in the short term, right? Like, they stop doing what you want them to stop doing. In the long term, increased aggression, increased substance use disorders, alongside those SUDs come issues with self-esteem, other issues. Things don't necessarily change when people become adults, right? Like, which, we think they do, but they don't. And so we go on and we try and do the same punishment approach through supply reduction, through sending people to, probation and parole, or sending them to prison based on what? Probably some underlying issues that are driving steroid use. I mean, that's not a slight on anyone or anything like that, but there's probably, there's that side, and then there's the performance side. And so, everybody's should be able to make their own choice, and we should help facilitate health as much as possible. When it stops being about health, then the discussion really, like, what's the point then? Send everyone to jail then. If it's not about health, okay, cool.
I think it's still, like, especially in the younger users that I've seen, they just don't even consider health. Like, obviously being young and then being on fucking these sorts of drugs, you feel invincible.
Superman.
Yeah, but you just don't think about health. But there is, once they get in front of people like yourself, or, I'll always send people an article that highlights the absolute worst of what could happen. If there's long-term abuse and things like that. And it's from my own personal experience and the research that I've read, and from chats like with people like yourself, just so that they're fully aware of what they're stepping into. And I think I don't want it to come off as a scare tactic, but it's very much a hit in the face of reality. This is what could happen if you don't prioritize your health.
Yeah. Oh, sorry,
that's all right. I'm surprised my dog hasn't actually yelled yet. So.
What do you?
We just got a choc lab. Yeah, it's a fucking adorable little cunt.
Whiskey.
Yeah, whiskey. He's at the destructive phase. Like, came home the other day, the little fuck had ripped our barbecue cover off and then ripped our barbecue. Like we have a little Weber, ripped our barbecue down, and then just dragged it onto the lawn. I was like,
Yeah.
you fuckhead. But he's so cute. You're just like, you fuckhead.
Yeah, how old? Like still
Yeah,
puppies,
he's
obviously.
5 months this week.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I know.
fine.
I was like,
Hopefully that'll stop soon.
oh, bro. I was just like, you little fuck. But anywho, sorry, we digress.
No.
Mate, you said you were doing some stuff with the prisons and looking into what they're doing and
Yeah.
chatting to people there. What was that like?
Yeah, look, so that was a real Queensland thing. I'm trying to build that up in Darwin again, sort of moving into like a corrections sort of research. There's one project
Is it
going now.
Sorry, is it
Yeah.
increased use in correction, in correction officers or inmates?
No, inmates.
Yeah, right.
Inmates. You'd be surprised how they get.
Literally.
That was my next question. Are you able to say any stories you heard about how they get it in, or that you aware of?
Oh, I think
They're shoving it up their ass.
they are. You know, the prison purse is the ideal place. There's obviously some other things that happen in terms of
Prison purse.
I can't name
Yeah.
the institute or places, but you know, through both personal networks, so I speak to a few guys in and out, and then through professional networks, I speak to the POs, caseworkers, case managers we call them now, as well as the few of the officers. There's a few things that happen. Obviously, they're not talked about. It's a real quiet space, but there's the prison purse, or there's the option of you know, other ways of things getting in. So you know, collusion on the inside.
Yeah, right.
I imagine that'd be highly valued within the once they're on the other
The
side
issue-
of the walls.
Well, it's mainly when they're getting out.
Yeah.
You know, when the guys want to get it, when they know finally they've got a release date or something, they don't want to, you know, maybe they wasted a lot of time on the inside on the subby or something like that, and they wanna be, you know, looking a bit better when they finally get out. Yeah. But so you know, month or two out. Usually they got a bit longer. Well, sometimes they get a bit shorter. But if they know a few months before they get out.
How, like, I don't know
exactly.
exactly the ins and outs, and I'm assuming it's different in obviously prisons everywhere, but in my head, I'm like, you're probably not getting the greatest nutritious food to supplement the stuff that you're taking.
Apparently, you know, they're like, you know, it's not too bad. The food's not too bad, but you know, that's from the angle of someone that's probably not had the greatest.
Yeah.
They can buy food in there, I think.
What?
Yeah, you got purchases that you can make
Yeah.
and things like that. If somebody puts money on, then you
Yeah, right.
But in terms of fits, like in terms of sharps,
That'd be tricky.
we're not talking everybody's got a clean 20.
Yeah.
Right?
They're not going to Biala and getting a fucking steroid pack.
Hey,
You don't have a drawing needle and a shoot. We're talking, you know, sometimes you're using the little 27s to do IM, right? And you're using a blunt 27 or that you've hidden from 27 and a half, or even a 30, 31 and a half, that you've hidden from, you know, that has been through so many hands.
how many other lads
so
have been using that same one for that fucking run?
Oh, 3 waters, 3 airs, bro. It's
Fucking hell. It's just a whole new, like,
Jesus.
I think, you know, my experience has been very almost clinical in a sense. You know, very much new needle every time, you wipe the surface, everything is sterile. That just blows my mind.
Yeah. Now we've got treatments for you know, there's a few treatments rolling out, but even so, you know, there's a lot of other bloodborne viruses and disease things that can be transmitted, and that's again, it's a health problem. Like this is a health problem, should be dealt with the same way. So I mean, you know, there's that side of things that I want to do a bit more in terms of obviously up here in the top end it's a bit different in terms of like what's going on in corrections and stuff.
You got a different state, different demographic of people Different
Yeah,
cultures.
so I mean, I'm still trying to look at.
Places might not have as much of a gym culture up there as they do down here, etc. Right?
Oh, I don't know about inside yet. That's the thing. I haven't got to build that
Mm.
network up again. But I mean, in terms of like the cultural distribution, there's certain population groups that are wildly
Yeah.
overrepresented in across all prisons in Australia, but particularly
Yeah.
up here. It's really sad to see, um, and there's a lot of other social issues going on up here. I think at the moment, I mean, just to give you an idea, in terms of the correction stuff, I'm just looking at police data of across the last 10 years around drug offences and things like that. So we're just analysing, doing some modelling in terms of basically using environmental criminological theories to look at the distribution. Like for example, for example, maybe methamphetamine's highly contained within city areas, whereas heroin or other opiates are more remote or rural areas. And same sort of trend for anabolics and things
Yes.
like that. But we can use those sorts of criminological theories to then model intervention sort of approaches or harm reduction messages for the right
Mm.
places. Again, not trying to come at it from the wrong angle. You know what I mean? It's always about health. It's about taking away barriers like stigma, and bringing facilitators for help seeking and engagement. So, but yeah, in terms of actually getting in, all the steroid prison stuff is still in Queensland.
See,
Yeah.
I've always kind of looked at it as like, if our armed forces were on steroids, I wouldn't care. I'd probably feel safer.
Mm.
Like, I would
Bigger and
really,
badder motherfuckers
yeah,
defending the
like,
front line.
fucking, if you're, I would feel safer, I think. You'd be more capable in a performance athletic sense.
You got reaction time. I mean, there's a paper from 2014-15 that showed all the immediate benefits from testosterone. I think they shot 250 mgs, maybe 125 probably. That you got reaction time increases. You got increase in red blood cell counts. You got increases in neurotransmission rates.
It's crazy, like, a lot of the, obviously, aspects, we've touched on it briefly about the physical benefits of all these things, but, you just said there, like, we increase neurologically when we take these drugs.
You got more
You
drive,
got
right?
everything.
Particularly,
More access to it.
I think one of the more interesting spaces that I've been in for a while, that you guys would know about, is the women and doping
Yep.
space. So it's me and a few researchers from Deakin. We actually got a grant to just an internal one. We'll go for a bigger one at the end of the year, just because nobody's really been playing in that space, but it looks like it's growing in Australia, right? So there's, if you thought it was bad for men, like it's even more skin in terms of information and support for women, and the way that sort of tabooness plays out, right? It's pretty.
I imagine, generally speaking, for women and steroid use, it'd be very taboo to be talked about very generally, I guess. Outside of our small world of powerlifting.
Is there a line you draw in the sand when, it's like, I find, for me, again, my personal beliefs, from my understanding, I'll accept that people will want to do what they do, but the second you start going down the route as a female, I believe, with injections, you open yourself up to a world of, like, issues now.
And this is one of the themes that sort of came out of some of the data. It marks a very different place in a strength athlete's career between an oral compound and an injectable compound as a woman, as opposed to.
Do you mean in terms of longevity? Like, they're less likely to stay in the sport if they start injecting?
Oh, don't know. I don't have the data for that. but in terms of like where they're at or where they want to go and what they want to do,
Yep.
like there's guys will shoot, some guys will shoot tests straight off the
Mm.
bat, right? And that's okay. And they can get away with doing some pretty stupid things. If a female makes a mistake, then there's far harsher penalties, or there can be far harsher penalties, which is not reflected by, I guess, the amount of information out there and the amount of thought that sometimes goes into these processes. I'm not just talking reproduction or anything like that. There's other physical changes and emotional changes that can really cause a bit of havoc. Interestingly enough, there's also, you run the risk of, have you ever gotten you order something and it's not what it says it is on the label?
Yeah.
Now imagine if there was, yeah, I'm not talking about.
Yeah, yeah, mate. We've all been there.
Yeah, so imagine if there's some compounds that females will reach for in terms of the injectables, like Premo, like NPP, for example, that are the first perhaps injectables that they might reach for. Now, imagine if that was test instead. It wouldn't matter so much for a guy again, but we don't have a controlled lab that's spitting out
Yep.
the right compounds that we want. And so I started talking to, there's a great initiative, PED kit. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but they're testing and they're releasing results from their tests as well. So we're going to do some stuff together. I'm going to look at, again, some interviews and things like that with guys about why they're testing, like who opts to test and why would you test.
Yep.
In the past, you had to send a mill away, or there was a lot of other things that you had to do. Now they've got it pretty down. They send you the dyes and it's all contained there, right? Or you can send it away if you want, I think. But I think those sorts of initiatives are pretty good, especially when they publicly release the data. Like, oh yeah, we had this many submissions and 4 of them were fake.
Yep.
And 2 of them were something else.
They're not saying where it came from, though, are they? They're just saying that that's just the results of.
You'd cop a bit of it. You'd be in trouble, I guess, if you were ragging on somebody.
Giving it that bad Google.
Yeah, you don't go around exclaiming which ones are. You don't know who's connected to who, and it's not something that you kind of want to put your nose in. But would you agree or disagree in your sense that quality of what's on the market at the moment, obviously we're talking black market, has decreased over the years?
You know what? Interestingly, I don't have any solid data, but if we go back to the COVID paper that Johnny flagged, it looked like out of the guys using, they felt that it hadn't changed in terms of purity. Now, you might think that that's a pretty poor measure. What would they know? But I feel more like if these guys have been using for a few years, they know they know what changes if it's underdosed. They can tell, and they can feel the effects because they're pretty tuned in with their bodies. But again, that's Brando. That's only 60.
It's a subjective measure to something that it could be measured objectively, but we also don't have the tools at the moment to do that.
There was issues with other drug purity, like methamphetamine purity, over the last few years. It was so sporadic, depending on supply, obviously border closures.
Do you reckon that also within methamphetamines? Do you think, and I guess all recreational drugs, will say, do you find during COVID the use increased dramatically?
Well, it did when there wasn't a reduction in supply, right? Alcohol shot up, drastically. Here in the top end particularly, there's still, alcohol's the number one big issue. Meth over the last 3 years, because I just I was on a panel a few days ago.
I saw that. That looked
Look
sick.
fancy there, mate, eh?
Oh no! Oh no! That was the
Oh,
multicultural panel. So that was
Oh, a lot of
that was
panels.
a
Here we
mental
go.
suicide talk. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities up here. But no, that was a men's health and suicide
yep.
talk. There was one a couple of days ago that was like all the peak bodies for alcohol and other drugs coming together and having a chat at Darwin Convention Centre. But I saw some interesting data there that said over the last 3 years, I think meth use dropped on average at one service. The people coming in using went from like 53% down to like 33, whereas alcohol followed the other
Yeah.
trend. So people are just replacing. I'd say, there's some similarities between other states as well and territories. People are replacing, if they're using substances, they're replacing what's available. And paid users do it as well. If you can't get your hands on the oils you want, at least years back, that was the deal. It's what have you got, bro? What's in the bag? Or what have you got on hand? I need something. Oh yeah, you got 10 of these. All right. Well, I guess I'm running that.
I had I won't name his name, but I have a know of a person who
You know, person.
his cycles are based on what's on special on some website.
Oh, that's excellent.
I'm like,
Gotta get that discount, boys.
he's like, I got 10 bowls of Deca for $40, so this is what I'm using. I'm like,
Here we
you're
go.
an idiot.
40
Like
bucks.
for each vial.
What's this website?
Yeah. Well, our DMs will be lit after this going,
Might need
so
to
what's
send
that
off.
website?
What was the name of that kit place to get that shit tested?
Yeah, yeah. Fuck me, though.
Well, they're on Instagram, so you can post them up.
The amount of people
Yeah,
that
yeah.
like message you on, or I don't get them anymore, thankfully, but I used to get like, we're the premium drug supplier of PEDs in Australia, and you're like,
Oh, the Psalms
yeah.
ones.
nah, these were like proper, yeah.
In the little profile picture.
Yeah. It's like a little box of gear, and you're like,
Yep,
you got some
totally gonna-
balls.
Totally going to order it off Instagram.
Yeah, I think there's the online avenues like the websites that recycle the domains and manage to stay up. Some get busted, as we know, and then there's the other deeper, darker markets where vendors are selling, hey, come buy this, come buy some child porn and here's some drugs as well on the side, or whatever
Wow.
it is. Yeah, on dark web, there's some wild stuff. That's probably a bad combination. I don't think anybody's selling those two things together, but who knows, right? Like,
It's
but
It's part of your when you are researching, bro. Have you got to jump in that dark web and just have a bit of a look around and see what's happening out there?
now that you say it, like this is again another up and coming project. Nobody's, from what I can see, at least in the steroid space, nobody's jumped on and done like a content analysis of dark web sort of
right.
content and things like that. So I think it would be good. There'd be some ethical issues around it. I'd probably have to clear
Yeah,
up.
that's the thing. Like
Stuff
you're
going to the dark web on that uni computer and would accidentally click something that you didn't mean to, and fuck, hang on a minute,
yeah,
the dean is giving you a buzz.
This is the thing, right? It's all got to be above board for research, so you can dig around or go and chat with somebody who's dug around there, but I can't actually write anything about it until it's followed these proper channels, right? But,
it's weird though because like it's something that obviously needs to be explored. It's that mindfuck of we need to explore this. The only way we explore this is by going deeper into it, but by going deeper into it, we expose the risk of everything, like finding out, but we can't make educated decisions in this field around things like that until we go deeper into it. There's so many ethical issues. Where does the uni draw the line? Where do you as a researcher have to draw? Like obviously you're coming in from a researcher standpoint, but you also personally, I'm sure you have. I know you personally, so I know you have great morals and who you are as a person, so that it's going to now we're like in a murky way, which route do we go? But again, you're backed by this purpose of, we need to find this research to help people, to educate people.
Well, with the dark web stuff, maybe that's more like a personal sort of interest,
Yeah.
right? Like to see what vendors are doing, I guess, and be able to monitor that. Because it looks like from the self-report stuff that people are using those dark web vendors more. Now, vendors aren't necessarily like they could be selling in person as well. We don't know. Like there's plenty of people that do online and in-person sales, and then they're like with any other business, they transition fully online. But it'd just be interesting to see what the trends were and things like
100%.
that. Take Tren Take Tren for example. Maybe 1 week or for a month there's a special on it, and suddenly we see a lot more people using it, but we don't know why because we're not monitoring that market. And then suddenly, there's a bunch of people having some real emotional and psychological distress coming through to get their needles, but we might come to the wrong conclusions because we haven't got the finger on the pulse in enough places. But that's probably like a super crude example. But
I think it's in this day and age. There's you hear stories, anything could be possible, and there could be something going on in the deep dark web that we don't know about that is affecting things.
How cool would it be if, like, I'm sure it could never happen, maybe it could happen, but let's say you're buying your stuff off X website, and then as a part of your email receipt comes through survey link, go monkey to Dr. Tim's survey around what you bought, and then you start to get data from all the people that are getting it. Fuck, that'd be, imagine the stuff you'd turn up.
Yeah, that's the idea, isn't it? And the way to get them to do it is always try and offer some money or some incentive, if you can get it. Like that's the idea, right? And then just watch those trends, see what's going on, and be able to use that to drive policy change. We're still sitting in the dark ages, at least in Queensland, around steroids. Go to jail for 25 years.
Cool.
Doesn't really happen much, but you can. And I've been talking about changing that for over a year now. 2 years.
That's fucked.
Yeah. So
plenty worse things out there than that probably deserve 25 years.
Yeah, exactly. It's real high up there, and I think it's just one of those interesting things about the law.
Yeah, like.
John,
Yeah, sorry, I'm just quickly checking. Not you, Suri, but thank you for trying.
Johnny, you've been super quiet.
Yeah,
today.
mate, just cruising along, mate, which is all good.
Kendra giving
mate,
you trouble?
We're in sleep training. If you want to chat some dad chat, played around with that at all? How was your sleep going? Well, we took on ours wasn't the greatest. We had a waking Kendra throughout the evening, so we took on sleep training. We hired a sleep specialist. She came around and delivered all the options, like a coach of coaches, so to speak, and we chose the reassurance method of methods, which is not really controlled crying as she sold it, but to me it kind of almost was. You put little Kendra down in the bed and say, Kendra, sleepy time, with a sort of, not stern, but sort of, this is what you're going to do kind of voice once you've given a nice hug and tell them you love them. And then you leave the room and then Kendra will scream at you. And then on an intermittent time, because they're clever little cookies and they work out, you go every 2 minutes, they know every 2 minutes you're coming. You go back in and change whatever position they're at, put them on the back and say, Kendra, sleepy time. So we've been running through that for a little bit the last couple of weeks. I think, touch wood, we've got the night times pretty sweet. She's sleeping through, which is good. Sort of most nights, maybe a little bit of a rustle, but not like a really need to get up in the middle of the night to look after her. But in saying that, she doesn't need to eat during the night because she's 9 months now, which is handy.
How long did it take for how many weeks?
Dude, we did it in 2.
That's big.
Like, it wasn't good though. Like, it wasn't fucking fun. Like, that first night, like, that was horrible. Like, she was screaming with what sounded like absolute stress and anxiety around where the fuck is mum and dad? Why aren't they coming into my room? Why am I in here by myself? It's dark. And, you'd go in intermittently and do the thing, reassure her, put her to sleep, blah, blah, blah. But that would just go on for like 20 minutes. And then break your heart.
Like Leo's too young for the like self-soothing stuff.
Oh, bro.
You know me from a research angle.
You're across all of it.
I've had a read. I've looked at what's going on, but it changes, man. When when it's a kid, like it's tough. But we're coming up to that. He's over 3 months now. He's growing a tooth, which has been wonderful.
That's good time, right?
It's a great time. So there's been these other joys to sort of manage. But I chose the move and everything at the same time. Did it to myself. But no, I've been wondering. Yeah, sleep training will probably start in the next month. So that extinction sort of method or the control, call it what you want. Really, it's like teaching them how to self-soothe.
Brutal.
Through reassurance, I quite like that one as well. Whether I'll be able to execute on it, like, I don't know. It's rough hearing them go through that sort of stuff.
It's brutal. And Kendra's clever, mate, because she can, like, climb herself up and do a stand-up, right? So she will be looking at the fucking door. She knows where the door is, even though it's pitch black, and just be like, at it. And you got the little baby monitor in black and white just going, oh, God, there it is. Nasty. But, two weeks on, she's sleeping pretty well. We haven't got naps dialed in. She doesn't like napping during the day in the cot, which sucks. So we get that experience repeated. But I quite enjoy pram walks, so I get out of the brook with little Kendra for a pram walk when it gets to be my turn, and go out for like an hour and keep her asleep.
Yeah. Which it's too hot here to go.
Oh yeah, you melt.
Like you got to get up. You got to go super early, or you got to go late at night. And we, because we didn't know, what was what and where was where. Like the uni put us up somewhere for I think a couple of weeks. But the rental situation here is not super. Oh. You're hard pressed to find a place. You're really hard pressed to find a place if you got a pet. So we moved out sort of to the hood.
In the hood?
In the hood of
Nice.
We've had no problems. We don't mind it here. But I think it's too hot at night. We walk, but we don't see anybody else walking around.
Yep. Fucking bro, you're almost
everybody's got fence.
You fucking up.
I'll get messed up. I think too tired to do anything. It'd be like just lie flat on my back and try full guard.
Yeah, that's it.
Full guard and just stay on the ground.
Bro, mate, we got 10 new questions. You want to hit them? You ready?
Oh, yeah.
10 new ones. What'd you have for dinner last night?
I messed these up pretty bad.
What'd you have for dinner last night?
Chicken tenders.
Yummy.
Yeah.
What's in the boot of your car?
You're making me think now. I think there's like a net wall, and maybe like Leo's like pram netting, and then like the water preventive cover or whatever. It's not much.
Ready to dad mode it. Last time you changed your bed sheets?
Well, I didn't change them.
It's been a while. It's been a while since you changed the bed sheets.
I don't take care of those things. Hey?
What's your middle name, sir?
Mark. M-A-R-K.
Your favourite year and why?
'91 was a good year. I mean, I was born. Came off the back of probably the best sleep I've had in a while.
Fair.
Oh, fuck. 91. Fuck, you guys are young. What was your first? Well, don't worry about cassette because they weren't around then. You were already in CDs.
Hey! We had cassettes. We had Walkmans.
What'd you have? First cassette.
Like a Casio Walkman, and the cassette in it, I'm pretty sure was one of my old man's, maybe like Depeche Mode or something like that.
The last dream you had.
There's not much of that going on.
No time to get into dream state. Still in fucking slight sleep mode.
What was it? Yeah, man, no, I'm blanking on that one. I want to say something funny, like, crocodile ate me or something.
You ate the crocodile.
Don't.
Fuck.
Apparently they taste pretty good. They sell
You haven't had it yet?
You can buy. Nah, I haven't had a chance.
Salty chicken.
It's on the card. Yeah.
It's nice. What are you gonna do when you retire?
Haven't thought that far ahead. It's a way off. Academics work
They go long.
pretty much into, I think I'll probably be saying I'll retire for a couple of years before it actually happens. But I reckon that'll be the time to finish off any tattooing that's left to do. Bit of travel, those sorts of things. Finally get the face done.
Oh, get fucked.
All those things you can't do.
Yeah, how would a big neck tattoo go when you're going into the next meeting with the dean trying to talk about the next research paper you want to write?
He'll probably think you're trying to sell him the drugs you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. They'd be like, I don't think we can have you at this university anymore. Although, you could say it's
Research purposes.
some tribal tattooing. Yeah, research purposes, tribal tattooing, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, you need him. Captain America is very tribal. He's
Exactly.
very
Cult leader.
Your morning routine, sir? What do you like to do? Do you have one? Or just whatever?
Yeah, so this is getting dialed in alongside Leo's routine. So if he's usually up by he's up again around 6:30. So I'll wake up, grab him for that little playtime, maybe a feed. I'll have the coffee, have the food, finish hanging out with him, pass him back, dressed, off to the office, probably leaving by, I don't know, 8:15, 8:30. There's no time for, messing around.
Very, very well executed.
The ideal morning routine would be more like jits at 6. I haven't managed to do yet. Been going to the night ones. And then, coffee, feed, maybe some light music, shower, all those like wonderful things.
You don't get them.
One day, Johnny, one day.
What do you think of artificial intelligence?
Oh, yeah, interesting direction, right? Like Terminator's on the way. We're close.
Fucking too close. If Elon Musk gets his way. If Elon Musk gets his way, he wants to build one of them. Did you see?
Yeah.
Did you see the thing he put out last week?
What about Japan? Sex robots.
Sorry?
Brando straight away.
Yeah. No?
In Japan, they've got the AI, the sexual robot
Really?
AIs coming up. I swear I saw something.
Well,
I'm not saying on what I was in the research setting.
That's
AI for intimacy, which I took to mean,
Yeah, no, we all took it the same way you did, but I'm like, wow.
It learns what you like and then it knows what to do.
I guess so. And I mean, the idea here would be to drive sales, right? I mean, there'd be plenty of people in that market.
Yeah, it's...
Anyway, I took that convo.
That's all right. We love that. We go down any rabbit hole here, and as always, it's a great place to finish. So, Tim, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, guys.
We have all where people can find you, so we'll definitely chuck that up in the show notes if they have ideas. Mate, again, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks.
No, brother. Chat soon.
See you, bro.
Chat soon.
Oh, bro, make sure you stay on because it's got to